Well, hello, my name is Amber McGinnis. I am the CBC, it's Construction Bootcamp instructor here at ANEW.
Hi, I'm Venus Villager, and I'm the supervisor for the Youth Exploration Program, which we call YEP. And today we're going to be discussing what the Construction Bootcamp and the Youth Exploration Program look like and how it would benefit you, your school, and your students. So here we go.
Tell me, what are the beginning steps that students take when they first are wanting to join the YEP program?
Great question. So what we would do is have these students go to their instructors. So it might be a counselor there at the school, it might be their actual teacher, or it might be someone that helps them with second steps, like when they're getting ready to graduate. What does that look like? Maybe they don't want to go to college, or maybe they want to do something with their hands or be more interactive. So that's how they would get in contact with me, the teacher would reach out.
And when do those classes normally take place?
So it depends. We start with the soft skills, and that's a 7-hour string of classes that can start whenever the teacher and the school, whenever it'll fit for them. So we might have one class per week for 7 weeks, and it's usually on the same day at the same time, so that students get used to that, and it makes it easier for the teachers and the schools to fit them in.
And so are those classes in person or is it through Zoom?
It can be either or. Excuse me. As we know, some schools are in person. Most schools are in person, but they may not be letting outside contractors come in. So some of them are still having me do it via Zoom, and the students seem to like it, and their parents and their teachers like it. But if they would like us to come in, I would be happy to come into the schools and sit there with them, because I don't know, we still just love that community when we're together. So I'm hoping that slowly we'll be getting back to the schools.
Yes, that's wonderful. If you do construction, that's a big part of it. There's a culture to construction, and a big part of that is community, so that's wonderful. Now, as far as getting ready for a student who wants to do the YP program, what are some things they can do before that?
Okay, so the question is, what are your interests? So are you interested in construction? Are you interested in manufacturing? And because this is a Department of Vocational Rehab, they have to have, once again, an IEP or a 504 plan, and then they have to show an interest. So they're thinking, well, maybe I want to be in manufacturing. I'm not quite sure. I don't like sitting behind the desk. I like being more interactive. Do you want to go to a 4-year college? If so, this might not be the best program for you. But if you are interested in hands-on, working with tools, being outside, that kind of thing, that would be great. Let's talk about what apprentice is. An apprenticeship is where you earn while you learn. And so you're out there on the job, tooling or learning under a master craftsman. So they're teaching you each year a little bit more and a little bit more so that you can then become that master craftsman. Okay? Or what? Yes.
So the first thing we need to do, one of the major things we need definitely is a driver's license.
Yes, absolutely. You also want to be physically fit. Now that doesn't mean you have to be, built like a tank or anything like that. I've seen women, I've seen smaller women and men. We have everybody in the trades, and we're trying to make it more diverse. So we're looking for everyone. I don't want anyone to look at these programs that we're discussing and go, oh, this must just be for young men or boys. It is not. It's for men, women, LGBTQ. We want everyone to feel included in what we do.
All shapes and sizes.
All shapes and sizes.
Is there anything else that they need to do?
You have to want this, because it is not an easy career. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to deal with adversities, and we here at ANEW and the Youth Exploration Program and the Construction Bootcamp will help you with all of these things, but we need it to be that fire to be inside of you. You need to work on your attitude, which is, once again, something that we're going to help to build in you. There's introduction to the trades. There's safety on the job site. Very important, because you're working with electricity and you're working in heights and things, so we really need you to be careful and know what that looks like. You're going to have an informational interview, which means we're going to have somebody from the trade, someone usually younger that has gone through a pre-apprenticeship program or a construction boot camp, come in and speak to the students so that they can ask questions and kind of understand a little bit more. Since we can't go on job sites, it kind of helps to have somebody come in and give that information. The fourth class is self-advocacy, and that helps because when you're in a different field like this, how you advocate for yourself is much different than if you were in an office or in a restaurant or working maybe at a grocery store. So what does it look like? Who do you go to? How do you ask for accommodations? So that's a 2-hour lesson. And then the last one is emotional intelligence. And man, oh man, that can be a little heavy. Trying to figure out, how do you connect with people out there in the field on a job site? How do you work with conflict and concerns? And so the last two, the self-advocacy and the emotional intelligence, those are two of my favorite classes, just because even if you choose not to go into the trades, it can help you across any field of jobs and experiences. But if they do decide they want to be in construction, what's cool is after that 7-week class, we offer a summer boot camp, and it is a 40-hour, one full week of paid work-based learning. So that means they come into wherever it may be. Sometimes it's on their school site, sometimes it's here in our camp facility, and they actually get to build something for their community for 40 hours and get paid for it. I mean, it's a win-win situation. And most of our students grow so much, and it really pushes them to see if they really want to do it, because you're getting up early, you have to be on time, you have to leave your phone, and focus, and it's a lot to ask. And the question is, are you up for the task? So I love it. I'm very passionate about the Youth Exploration Program because I've seen what it can do for students and their families and their futures.
Yes, and what a good start too.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, as far as getting set up for it, is there any paperwork that they have to do, or enrollment forms that they have to fill out?
There is. So for the first 5 classes, you would need your pre-ex form, which is something that your teacher would help you do, and your parents would have to sign it. So remember that. If you're over 18, you get to sign it yourself, and then that would be turned in, and that's all we need for the soft skills, is what we call them. But for the actual summer boot camp, where you get paid for that 40 hours of work, and it's minimum wage, that's something I want to say, that's when you need to fill out an application, because you actually are working for ANEW for that 40 hours, right? And so you would have to have that completed and submitted before we accept you to that boot camp. You have to have your social security card, so please make sure that you work on that prior to the summer boot camp. And you also need either a valid ID or a driver's license, so a picture ID. So please make sure that you have those prior to coming to the boot camp.
And let me ask you a question about that.
Yes.
Does a passport count as a valid ID?
Oh, it does. It does. There's a list, and if you and your teachers or family need that, I can send it out. But it tells you if you don't have this particular thing, then you need 2 of these things. If you don't have 2 of these things, you need 3 of these things. So there are different ways around that.
Oh, that's good.
Great
That's
question.
good.
Thank you.
And now, generally, even though your students are still in high school and they're minors, and there's a lot of information that parents have to sign and fill out for them,
Yes.
what do you think is the best way to take charge of their future and to work on this for themselves?
I love that. And I'm sorry I didn't touch on that before. We have to, that self-advocacy class, I'm sorry, I had problems there. We want you to be able to work on things yourself. And so filling out that application, practice that. Practice that before you have to go out and actually do it for a job. And make sure you have all the information, the dates of birth, where you were born. A lot of those kind of things might be asked, your social security number. A lot of places want to put your check right into your account. So you might even have to have your savings account or checking account number. So you want to practice those things so that you can feel self-sufficient. As we get older, we can't always have our teachers or our parents there to advocate for us, and some employers won't allow that. So we need to kind of think of things and figure things out on our own.
Yeah, and I think that's important too. Like you said, practice that transition from young adulthood to proper adulthood, where that's what's expected of you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, can I ask you a few questions about CBC?
Yes, I believe that.
Okay, so first, can you explain what CBC means?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So CBC stands for Construction Boot Camp.
Okay.
It's done off-site, so that we can bring the training to adults outside of King County to other parts of the state.
That's great.
Because we want to facilitate a diverse and strong workforce. And so we work on building the skills necessary to make that happen. And people wanting construction don't just live in King County, they all over the state.
Absolutely, that's wonderful that you guys offer it outside.
To ask people to drive 2.5 hours for training can be a little difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we want to make it as easy as possible for them to develop the skills to help themselves. Cool. So, and it's a short version, that's where the boot camp comes in, is it's 4 weeks.
Okay.
Because when we're off-site with our training, our materials and supplies and locations are a little bit more limited. But also, folks don't always have 10 to 12 weeks necessary to devote as a third of the year to their time. And sometimes they need a quicker training. But because it's only 4 weeks, it's much more intense, and it's 5 days a week, and we hit it hard, and we get after it. So
do you find that you have more people not finish because it's so intense, or do you have a good track record of people staying?
we have an 86% graduation rate, and I find that it's all about your mindset going into it. My students are very dedicated because they see it as a way to change their life, to propel themselves into a better life, a better career. And so they're willing to put in their all. And that's what we ask the most of them, is just dedication and to work hard with a good attitude. And you would be surprised what you are capable of when you put in that type of effort.
So I know you have to be fit. Is that something that you help folks with?
Oh yes, absolutely. So construction is a very physically demanding job, but that's not to say that you have to be large and muscular to make it happen. So what we focus on is proper techniques like lifting and bending, and also being efficient with our movements. Right? So if you are lifting something the wrong way, you're actually using more muscles and taking more energy to do that. So we focus on, for each individual body type, you getting your strongest for what's good for you.
I love that. So tell me, what about math? Because I know, all the measuring and, you've got to be precise and stuff. What does that look like in the CBC?
Well, math is in everything.
Okay.
So obviously construction too. But what I tell everyone is that the purpose of math is to get the answer as fast as possible.
Okay.
And that's it.
What does it look like?
So for everybody, that can be different. different because our brains don't all work absolutely the same. And that is a bonus for us, especially construction. We're always looking for people to problem solve. And if everyone's thinking the exact same way, or coming to a solution the exact same way, there is no creativity in problem solving. So when we are working with math, we try to present materials in as many different formats as possible.
Well, that would be helpful.
Because we want your brain to make that connection. Because it doesn't matter how your brain makes a connection.
As long as we get it.
As long as we get it.
All right. Love it, love it, love it. I know that all of us are working to try to get people hired, right? So do you help with interview skills?
So when you talk about when you're speaking to self-advocacy,
Yes.
there is definitely a way to present yourself. And it comes from us having confidence in who you are. And I think in my construction boot camp, it goes hand in hand. So when we are learning these skills and feeling empowered with working with power tools and building things, we realize that we are capable more of what we can do. And that easily translates over, in my opinion, to talking, presenting yourself well, because you know that you are capable and that you can do things.
So what about attitude? It probably fits hand in hand with the interview skills and things like that, but what do you do to help people with that attitude? Because once again, working at McDonald's or at a doctor's office or in retail is a bit different than working on a construction site, correct?
It is. It's absolutely. There's definitely a culture to it, and you have to be tough mentally. And the idea is to think of yourself like as a duck. Just don't let it in the water. Just let it roll off your back. Don't let it get into you.
I love it.
But how do we do that, right? How do we be tough mentally in an atmosphere that's physically and mentally demanding?
Right.
Well, you have to have a really good support system, but you also have to learn to check in with yourself. So I always tell folks that you're not an expert in construction yet, but what you're learning to be is an expert of yourself. So how can you take what you're feeling and dealing with and then channeling it to be successful for you? And everybody has a unique situation because we're all different, but that is also what we focus on, is how can that work for you?
So I talked about making sure that you were working towards your driver's license. Why would they need a driver's license? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the key components of being successful to be a driver, really, but especially construction, is dependability. So your employer is building something, and they have to have a certain amount of people to build that bridge or house. And if you cannot make it to work consistently every day, they're not having enough people to finish the project. So what they're really afraid is dependability. So if you are having issues with your transportation because you couldn't get a ride or the bus line doesn't run there, they're not going to want to keep you on to do the work because they needed to be able to finish the project on time.
Thank you. Now, with that being said, we do at ANEW, especially for the CBC and for our traditional 12-week program, we will offer assistance with certain transportation. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So that is for our ARC program. So for some folks who qualify, we can help offset gas prices as they travel far distances with gas cards.
Okay.
Sometimes our students have barriers. Like, for example, they just had large fines they couldn't pay off because they didn't have a good paying job.
Right.
And so what we try to do is work with them to break down those barriers so they can get back to getting their license because it's so very important.
So you spoke about time management and things like that just a little bit. But what do you do to tell them to get ready for an early morning? Because we're talking early morning for most of these classes, right?
Yes. So construction is early morning. So usually it starts at 6:30 or 7 in the morning. But
Ooh, that's kind of early, y'all.
usually before this sun comes up. But
Okay.
then that's being there. You still have to get yourself up and ready for the day long before then. So what is I feel the best way to do is just get yourself in a good morning and night routine.
What's that look like?
So at night what you try to do is just, if you're like me, I'm not awake. So I get everything done the night before.
Yes.
So I set out my clothes, I make my lunch, I make sure my car is filled up with gas.
Wait a minute, can I say, so you take lunch every day?
Oh, absolutely. Because on a job site, you may be working at remote areas.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And you would be able to just hop to McDonald's or in the closest place for lunch.
Right.
And even if you can sometimes, because you're doing physical activity, you're extra hungry.
Yes, yes.
So it's always good just to pack extra food. You can always just not meal perhaps or save it for the next day, but definitely packing lunch.
That's great information, thank you. Yeah.
Making sure you have directions so you know where you're going in the morning so you don't get lost.
And something, if I can interject, when you're talking about gas in your car and directions, sometimes, especially with so much construction going on in the city and stuff, it might take longer. So making sure that you give yourself that buffer. Like this morning, just trying to get here, I gave myself an hour and 15 minutes, and I was only 5 minutes early. It should usually take me 45 minutes to get here. So making sure that we're thinking ahead, because we want the people that we're trying to impress, that we're trying to work for, to look at us and go, wow, I see you. You were here half an hour early, and you stayed and cleaned up afterwards. So we want to make sure we're putting our best foot forward, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely, and I think the word impress is exactly what you want to do.
Yeah,
You're not looking for the bare minimum. And like you were saying, I generally give myself the amount of time I think it would get for me to drive there, and
Yes.
I double that.
Whoa, you doubled it?
In case there is traffic or accidents, because in construction, there is.
Yeah.
In construction, that's not a good excuse
They
for
don't
me
care.
for not being there. But I don't want you to think of being early as a waste of your time, because it is not. Like you're saying, you want to impress the company that you work for. For them to see that you were there early, well, you can be bringing a book with you to read. You can go over your plans, your blueprints, or your day.
Love it.
Usually your foreman is there early. You can speak with them about what they have planned for you, then they can see your dedication and impress them.
Right.
Not the bare minimum. Impressing, that's what we're going for.
And when you're talking about the amount of money that construction workers make, you really want to, I always tell my students once we get into the thick of things, don't let anything get between you and your money, right? So if somebody's acting up on the job or maybe harassing you a bit, then you need to tell, you know, your journey person or your forward person or whomever it may be, because you don't want to lose your job because maybe you get upset and lose your temper or something. So that's really important, and which is part of that emotional intelligence that we're going to be teaching is, you know, how do you deal with that stuff?
And it does come up on the job quite a bit, actually, and that goes along with also your attitude as well. So
Yes.
if you are getting upset by somebody who's bothering you, or if they're saying inappropriate things to you, and then it's your attitude, you start letting it affect your work,
Yeah.
then your employer's looking to get rid of you when you weren't even the cause of it.
Right, and which is so unfortunate.
It is, but then that talks back to your proper self-advocacy,
Right.
and also your emotional intelligence to know how to redirect your feelings and to let people know around you what's going on so that you're not alone.
So is there anything that maybe I didn't ask you that you think other people might need to know about your program?
I think the takeaway for most of our students as they come and visit, neighbor, we were not ready for this.
Whew.
And I say to them, that is good. Because in life, if we ever wait to be ready to do something, we're never going to start it. So the first thing to do is just to start and to get in there and stick it out, because you are far more capable than you think that you are.
I love it, thank you.
Thank you. This is a great talk to you about this.
So, with that, if there are any questions that you, your instructor, your principal, your CTE teacher might have, please have them reach out to ANEW with Amber or Venus, and we'll be glad to get back to you.